Good evening and welcome to Chasing the Facts. I'm Sam Chase, your host, and with us this evening is Susan Gates. And am I going to get your title correct? I don't know. I will say that you are the Executive Director of the Chelmsford Center for Performing Arts.
Yes.
How's that? Is that okay?
That's pretty good.
All right, close enough.
You got it. Thanks, Sam, for having me.
And we ask, as you know, because you've been on the show before, we always ask our guests to just give a very brief biographical sketch just to get us started, and then we'll get into the discussion. So.
Sure. Although I'm a native Californian and went to UC Berkeley, I have my husband and I and our children, but they're grown now, moved here 36 years ago. So both of our sons went through the Chelmsford public schools completely, and I hate saying it, I'm now old enough to say I've lived here longer than I've lived anyplace else, even my birthplace. That I didn't leave until I got married.
But like me, you are still a blow-in.
That's okay.
We will never be natives, Susan.
Well, you know what? That's funny, Sam, because we didn't know this when we moved here. But my husband's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was Jerothamel Bowers, one of the first selectmen in Chelmsford.
Well, okay.
His wife died here, I mean, when they were elderly, and she's buried in father's burying ground. And he moved to Groton to live with his son. So even back in those days, when somebody became quite old, they would go perhaps and live near their children. And when he died in Groton, he was buried in Groton. So, and the Jerothamel Bowers house is when you go Drumhill Rotary to Wood Street, and you pass Wood Street on the right. And then there's now some new business buildings, but right behind it is a little white house that looks like now it's almost right up to the lot line. That was the Jerothamel Bowers homestead.
That is absolutely fascinating, and I think I'm going to confer native status on you as a result of that narrative. I think talk about a small world. It's amazing.
No, and we didn't know that when we moved here. So I told Derek he's a homing pigeon.
There you go.
That was all it was. But anyway, so I went to UC Berkeley, and then I got married, and then we moved to New York City because I was stage managing. And then his job moved. He's an immunologist, and he got his PhD and did a postdoc. Then we moved to Washington, D.C., and I worked at the Kennedy Center it was then called the Washington Opera. And then I worked for the Corcoran Gallery of Art, which was a major art museum. It's not anymore, unfortunately. The collection was dispersed, and the building is being used for something else, I don't know what. But anyway, I worked in the theater, and I worked for an major art museum. And then we left there after our children were born, and we moved here. And so I've lived here for 36 years. And I've been on what was then called the Board of Selectmen, but the Select Board. I've been on I don't know how many committees with the town, and I was a town meeting rep from the beginning. And then I took a hiatus because I really wish more people would get involved.
Yes.
It isn't that onerous to be a town meeting rep. It really isn't.
No, it is not.
It's not like you can do nothing, but it isn't that difficult a job to do if you're interested, even have a modicum of interest in what happens in the community. So but anyway, I did that, and then I took a hiatus. And then a couple of years ago, I came back, and now I'm a town meeting rep, but I'm also the appointed executive director, a volunteer for the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. And I've done that for more than a decade, because when I was on the board of the select board, we had to come up with, we were asked, each of us, to come up with things we'd like to achieve in the community. And one of the things that I wanted to see done was not building, but having an arts center in the center of town. And so it took a long time. It had to wait until after I was done, but I never forgot about that goal of having that kind of a center for our community. And it was just happenstance that it became available to do that. And the town manager, I'm so grateful to Paul, he believed in me and the other people that were working on it. And here we are today, and we've been open for over a decade.
Well, it makes perfect sense, that you would have that level of involvement because of your background. I mean, obviously you've been interested in the arts from the time you were a young person, and you've worked professionally, you've worked in that area. And I know your law practice concentrated on that side of the business as well. So you have certainly the background. And why don't you bring us up to speed a little bit, maybe just a little bit of information about the building itself and how that became the center for the arts.
Okay.
And then you can take it from there.
Okay. So I don't even know what year it was, but it was probably in the 2006 to 2008 period. There was a big downturn in the economy, and one of the things that was done was we had a recreation department, but the community education people said, we'll take over that function. And so recreation was closed, and the veterans agent, who had been also in the old town hall, she moved over to the town offices.
Right.
So then the next thing was there was a charter school that rented, and it was the charter school that's up at the old Wang Center that's in Tingsboro.
Innovation Academy.
Innovation Academy, yes. They just rented for 1 year because they were just getting started with the high school. So they had their freshman class there, and then they were going to be opening so then they could move and have a new freshman class and the sophomore class. So when that was done, well, actually, while it was happening, I went to Paul Cohen, the town manager, and I said, hey, turning this into an arts center is something that kind of was on our agenda a long time ago, and I'm still interested, and I've got other people who want to help and want this to happen. And he said, well, we don't have money right now, but if you can pay the utilities, then you can give it a go. I think you can be successful. And I said, as we were going like this, and I was going to shake his hand on it, I said, exactly how much is that? And I think the total bill, not just utilities, but everything for running the building was under $20,000. They knew exactly because you could just go and press a button and look and see how much did it cost for running that building with public, facilities. And I thought, well, if we can't do that in a year to pay that, then we may as well just go home.
Yeah, you don't deserve to be supported.
Right, exactly. So it was Peggy Dunn and Kit Harbison. Donald Van Dyne, I can't remember if he was there at the very beginning, but he came in eventually to help. Those were the first people. And then now we have Barbara Riley, and Lori Simcoe's on the board, and Donald's left, but we have a new chairman. His name is Sean Carnathan. He's an attorney. He lives in Chelmsford. He has his office in Burlington. So Lori Simcoe and Sean are the two newest people on the committee. But in any case, we all got together, and it really was like, my mom's got a curtain, my dad's got a barn, let's put on a show. It was that grassroots. And we started with a bang because we just were doing it all ourselves, and we had no idea where it would really go. Maybe, Avilu, can you put the slide up about the, let's see, I'm looking.
There you go.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Okay, so this was fiscal year 2018, and Trina Teal made this beautiful infographic for us. But it really gives you an idea of where we went from nothing to, in fiscal 2018, we have patrons who come from the 17 communities in the greater Merrimack Valley. We also get people who come from Boston, farther away many times, but generally, and we know because when people buy tickets, you see where they're from, right? They come from a tribe of over 500,000 people in 17 towns. In fiscal 18, we did 68 performances, so that's, for an organization like ours, that's like astonishing.
It's phenomenal.
And I will tell you how astonishing it is. I mean, I didn't realize that it was something really extraordinary until 2 weeks ago. I was doing a Zoom meeting there's an organization called New England Presenters, and it's like a business association of venues that bring in performances or produce them themselves. And we were in breakout groups, and a woman from Maine, we don't know each other necessarily, and she said to me, how many shows do you have a year? And I said, well, now we're just doing live streams and it's only a few, but before the pandemic, we were doing 68, and I think in the next fiscal year, well, we can't see it, but the next fiscal year it was 72 performances. And she said, did you say 72 or 68? And I said, yeah, it was 68 performances. And I said, how many do you do? She said 8 or 9.
There you are. No, that is an astonishing number. And so now we're up to 2019, and you seem to be, from the inception, you seem to be gaining momentum every year, building up your programs and so forth.
Until the pandemic.
And then COVID hits, so I'm going to stop us right there, since we're into COVID now, and I'm just going to make a very short statement for the benefit of folks who are watching the show. You'll notice that neither Susan nor I are masked, and the reason for that is because she and I have both been fully vaccinated. Additionally, within the studio, we are distanced at 8.5 feet. So we are well within the CDC guidelines for compliance, and I just want our viewers to be comfortable that we are aware of the pandemic protocols, and on this show we practice those protocols. So I'm just going to make that statement. And so now we're doing reasonably well, although in past discussions with you pre-COVID, this wasn't all a bed of roses. I mean, you had to work very, very hard to make sure that you had the requisite amount of funding to keep the building open, paying the utilities and all of the other things. So now, bang, we get hit with COVID. So no performances, nobody can go in the building. Take it from there.
Well, what was really painful was about a week, we closed on March 13th. We were the first building to actually close. In consultation with Paul Cohen, we talked about it, and I said, Paul, my husband's an immunologist. This is his field. What exactly what's going on now. In fact, he was the head of regulatory for Pfizer, but he's retired now. But so he really knows about this, and it's time. We can't do in-person things. We've got to close. And he said, I'm back you all the way. So we closed. But the week before, we had just installed a 3-camera system with a switcher, so that the switcher's actually in another office downstairs, so that we could do live 3-camera shoots of the performances streamed from our concert hall. But there it was, and it was there for almost a year before we could figure out whether we could do anything, because it just wasn't safe to even, so it was just so hard to sit there knowing we had the equipment and the ability to do these things. And by the way, the Chelmsford TeleMedia Corporation, not the public access station, but the charitable part of it, they actually donated the equipment.
Oh.
So that's how we were able to do that. So I thank them very much. But we sat around and I was just, how are we ever going to survive this? Because even when the building is closed, there's still a cost to running it. It's a public building. It doesn't,
significant cost.
right. And the electricity is the number one thing because we have electric heat, not gas heat. And think what I said before, that the total cost before the building was renovated, which when it was renovated, it was using community preservation funds for historic buildings. But before it was renovated, the total cost was $19,000 to say $20,000 or so to run the building completely for all costs.
Utilities, right.
Not just utilities, all
Everything.
costs,
Okay.
right? With the electric heat and air conditioning, it's more like $22,000 a year just for electricity.
Wow. Wow.
That's the way it is. Right now, they're trying to do things to tinker and make it so that it isn't so bad. And Paul Cohen ended up, I'm very grateful about this, he was able to use some solar credits to help offset that. But the fact is, it's still, what if there was suddenly not very many solar credits, or they changed the rules, or who knows what? There's still a significant cost for just the electricity. And so we were sitting wondering, what are we going to do? And then finally, the state and the director of public health, Sue Rosa, made it possible where we could have, just like this, we don't have an audience here, right? It's just the two of us in here. And the director is behind glass up there, so he's not in contact with us. There's no camera operators. Well, we have the same thing at the CCA. So we're limited, though, to 4 people on stage. The director is Tony Sylvia. He's our employee, and he's not even on the same floor. They can't even see him. He's down in his office. He does all the lights, the sound, everything from a totally separate room. And we've been starting to do these live streamed concerts. And you can find out more about them on our website, which is chelmsfordarts.org. But that's where we have no income. We can't sell tickets.
Right.
It just is impossible because everybody and his brother is doing live music from their living room. I mean, I've watched concerts in Europe where really well-known musicians are playing in in their back bedroom. So we can't do that, but we still want to provide it. So we're spending our capital now to pay the musicians that you get to see every week coming live from the CCA. And so there's that.
So you've got tremendous pressure on income because there isn't any, but yet you want to keep the continuity going, which is what you're trying to do with the program that you've put together at this point.
To give you an idea, though, about money and what remember, we had no paid employees. I've been doing this for 10 years as a professional, and I'm not asking to be paid. I don't want to become the paid employee. We need somebody to replace me. But with no paid employees, I'll give you an example. We have income that comes from renting for showers and parties and things like that. That was $2,980. This is for calendar year 2019. And that's just for people renting for parties and meetings.
Again, pre-COVID, when you could have scads of people in the building.
Then we have rental income from CCA programming. So, for example, if there is an art class, we earn money from offering that class. That's just one example. But we had $25,025 from rental income for CCA programs. And that also includes probably the most important thing that we do, which is provide a home for the community arts organizations that would have no other place to go if we didn't exist. And that's the Chelmsford Arts Society, the Chelmsford Concert Band, the Chelmsford Jazz Ensemble, Toastmasters, an opera group, Illumination Opera, young people's, there are 2 Shakespeare groups, 2 separate ones, right? But those 2 groups, they wouldn't have a place to go if if that building wasn't open to them to use. So when people see the 4th of July art show, which unfortunately we won't have that again this year, but it will be back at some point. All those kinds of things, the concerts on the Common, those can't happen if the community band doesn't have a place to rehearse. I mean, in a reasonable place. Not They were in the town gym, but a gym isn't any place for a musical rehearsal. So we are their home. That's the home, and it's for the people in our community. Yes, we have people from, like I said, 17 other communities come to the CCA, but it's not primarily for them. It's primarily for the people of our town to be able to experience art and to, be part of it, to be creative themselves. So anyway, the rental income that came from them paying a small fee to use the building, before it used to be free, but we said, look, we all have to chip in. And it's $10 an hour for those Chelmsford groups to be able to use the building every single week.
What
for
a bargain.
rehearsal.
What can you buy for $10 an hour today? Not much.
Nothing.
Right.
But if you're, but think about it.
Right.
I'm sure you've been a member of charitable organizations where the big problem was, where are we going to meet? And if the hotel is saying suddenly that they're going to charge you $500 for a meeting, right, once a month, where's that money? You can't do that.
That's right. That's right.
So this is a public building, just like the library's public, and the police station meeting room is public and can be used by the public at no cost, I believe. We do that, but people pay a very small fee for those arts-related organizations. But that was $25,000. Then contributions were $28,000, almost 30. It's $28,958. And program receipts were, were $11,000, and that's not tickets. That's other kinds of things that we do where there might be some other side income to it, right? And then, but tickets were $26,000. So, and our gift shop brought in $575.
And bear in mind that folks have to remember that from the proceeds, you have to pay your performers. You've got people coming in. And
we have to pay the performers. We have to pay. I mean, there's a lot. We have to pay for cleaning. It's a 3-story building, and the idea of, volunteers are going to clean it. No, they can't. And especially now during COVID, it's sad, but we're fortunate because the federal government actually kicks in money for sanitizing type cleaning, and so that's not coming out of this now. But we started out having it cleaned on once a week, and that was it. And then as we grew to have those 68 performances every year and all the things that were happening in the building, then we needed to have it cleaned more often. So we had it cleaned on Mondays on Thursdays and, Thursdays and Mondays. Because Thursday, then it was clean for the weekend. And then after the weekend and all the people that came in, they'd clean on Monday and it would be good until the next Thursday. But that's a 3-story building with multiple bathrooms and meeting rooms and whatever.
Well, you know, Susan, as we talked a little bit off camera earlier, Chelmsford is the 18th largest municipality in the state, population a little over 35,000 people. And you know the town very well because you've been here a long time and been involved, as you told us at the beginning, and I've been here for 42 years and have had a similar level of involvement. And I have to say, I think we both know the town pretty well and the demographic. And I firmly believe that this town is large enough and diverse enough, the population is diverse enough, where it should not be a difficult proposition to support an endeavor like this. This is not an insurmountable thing to overcome. COVID aside, I mean, obviously that throws a monkey wrench into everything.
Of everybody, right?
But
everything.
during the course of normal times, I just don't see that this should be a difficulty. And quite frankly, I would advocate for more community funding in the way of an allocation from the town budget. I don't think that's out of line, and I think a very good case can be made for that. I mean, if you look at the types of programs that you have historically offered over the several years, and my wife and I have you know, we haven't gone as much as we should have, obviously, but
you did come
we
to
do,
many
we do,
things.
and I drive by the, again, in normal times, you drive by the marquee in the center of town and you see what's coming. And the many times I've driven by and I've looked at the sign and said, wow, she got them? Or, you know, this isn't some little podunk operation. I mean, Susan runs a very professional organization, and the types of activity, the arts that occur in that building are high quality, first caliber. We didn't talk about the piano, but that's a good example of the type of effort that you and others have made to make sure that we've got a first-class venue for these kinds of things. And I, as a Chelmsfordian, even though I'm a blow-in, I'm going to say it anyway, I think 42 years I can say that, I am very, very proud of the fact that the town has supported this effort, even though most of it has been through volunteer efforts such as yourself. But now we've got about 2 minutes to go, and I want you to talk just a little bit about what do we do going forward? I mean, you know, you're still here, and I hope you're going to be with us for a while and doing this, but at some point, you know, you're not going to be able to do this any longer, and we want to keep this thing going. What is your recommendation for how we do that?
Well, I think over the course of the decade that I've been doing this, that the record shows that we bring in enough money to we always have, we've never been in the red, we've been in the black every single year.
Very important.
Right? So that by the end of June, right, we have enough money to carry us through until September, when all the arts organizations, the bands and the kids' theater programs and whatever, whenever they come back, then they pay for the year for the use of their building. So we have enough money to do the things that we've been doing. We just don't have enough money to pay the professional staff. And this is glorifying saying staff. We're talking 2 people. We have to have a technical director, which we do now, but that person needs to be there because everything's too complex. This isn't you can teach somebody how to run things on a weekend and then they're good to go. No, much more complicated. And then we need somebody to do what I do, and the reason I can do this is because of my education, training, and background. I write the contracts. Well, that's my legal hat. I handle gallery things. Well, I worked for an art museum. I was a stage manager. I know about booking musical groups. I'm a member of many arts organizations. that's a professional job. That's like being the library director.
Right. So we have to step up, folks. We're out of time, but we have to think about this. So put that in the back of your head.